Well, hi everyone. It looks like we have some folks joining online as well. So my name is Ariel Dierarf. I'm the Director of Data Science and Open Scholarship at the UCSF Library. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Holly Thompson. Holly, do you want to say hi?
Hi, I'm Holly Thompson. Nice to meet you all.
And we are here to do a quick presentation on some library services that we have heard y'all are interested in, or maybe want to learn a little bit more about. So I think you had like an hour and a half block for this, but I think we probably have about 20, 30 minutes of presentation, and then we should have plenty of time for discussion or questions about any of the things we've talked about. I also, let's see, I'll get the chat up for those of you that are online, and feel free to just stop us at any point. It's a pretty small group, and ask questions. And it looks like we are recording, or I am recording as well, so that you all will have that later. Okay, let's get into it. So I always like to start off with just a quick overview of the library itself. So this is probably familiar to you, but it's always nice to kind of remind ourselves of these things. At the core, we have a lot of resources at the library. So things like journals, electronic journals, lots and lots of rich databases. And something that people sometimes forget about is ebooks. So lots and lots of books on pretty much any topic that you can think of. We have print books, but more and more we're kind of purchasing online books. So you can read them wherever you are, whenever you want. We also have spaces. So here we see, of course, the classic Parnassus Library, but we have spaces at Mission Bay, including the Family Library in the Rudder Center across from the gym. We have spaces in Mission Hall. And then I like to shout out our Makers Lab, which is at Parnassus. If you haven't been there, it's a really great dynamic space for 3D printing, sewing. We have sewing machines, making all kinds of kind of crafts and interactive technology. And then the thing that we're mostly going to focus on today is people and expertise. So of course we have resources, of course we have spaces, but at the heart of the library is really the people and staff and the expertise that we provide. So these are some of the teams that we're not going to talk a lot about today, but I just wanted to give them a shout out. One is our Digital Health Humanities program. So this is a pretty new program. And we are actually hiring someone to lead it going forward, where we are kind of connecting humanities researchers who work with more kind of text data with new kind of forms of computational learning and analysis. So we did a whole series this past year where we taught health humanities researchers how to use Python to do kind of sentiment analysis, natural language processing, and close projects like that. Another is our instructional design team. So this is a team within the library that helps faculty and researchers put together course materials for classes, for training. They help build really kind of innovative, more and more virtual coursework. And then finally, we have our archives team, which of course maintains the archives, but helps researchers connect with really rich primary source materials, and as well as the history of the health sciences and the history of UCSF. So those are just some of the other teams, and we can talk more about any of these later if you want. But we're going to focus on two of the teams that Holly and I represent today, which is the Data Science Open Scholarship team and the Education and Clinical Research team, and all of the services that we all provide for you. So let's get into it. So the first one is Data Science and Open Scholarship team. So this is my team. Here we all are. So in addition to myself, who's the director, we have Jeff Boucher, who's our head of data engineering, Carla Lindquist, our head of data science, Albert Lee, who's our data science instructional designer, and Annalisa Taylor, who's our head of scholarly communication. And we're also really lucky that we have a student who works with us. This is Fred Jiang. He's a third-year neuroscience PhD student and also our student teaching assistant. So he's often the one, if you come to one of our courses or workshops, he's often the one supporting you in the chat, answering questions. So the mission of this team is really to serve as a campus hub for education and support in data science and scholarly communication. So you'll see this kind of reference throughout the whole library is really focused on education and support. So for my team, we're not the team that's going to do data science for you or, be added to your grant, but we will teach you how to do it yourself. We'll connect you with resources, and we can connect you with people all across campus that can provide those kinds of services. So really trying to be a hub for this kind of information on campus. So what do we actually teach? What is our kind of, what do our classes and workshops focus on? So we have topics that cover the entire research life cycle. So when you're first starting out, you're kind of designing your study, we can help you with data management planning. So putting together a data management plan, thinking about your experimental design, what maybe statistical tests do you want to be using. When it comes to data collection, we can help you find data either within UCSF, connecting you to all the various data resources, or think externally, what are some other public data sources or data sources that are available to license that we can kind of point towards. When it comes to data analysis, we're really interested in helping you both analyze your data, so think statistical analysis, more computational approaches, machine learning, natural language processing, but also do all of that fun or maybe less fun data cleaning and preparation. So before you can analyze your data, often there's a lot of tidying and cleaning that folks need to do. And finally, when you're ready to share your results, we can help you think about how to publish either in a traditional journal, although more and more we're focused on kind of open access journals and making the results more publicly accessible. We can also help with things like sharing code, data, methods, if you want to think beyond, just sharing an article, but how can you make the components of your research more accessible? And finally, how to track the impact of your research and really tell a story about what you're working on. So these are the topics that my team covers, and kind of underpinning this all is a focus on open science, openness, and data-driven science. So really building up those computational skills. That said, we know that not everyone wants all of their work to be totally open, and there's many reasons that you might want to keep components of it, secure or protected. So we're happy to support that as well. So I wanted to just dive a little bit deeper into some of these topic areas so you have a sense of what some of the questions are that we work with and how we can help. So the first one is the kind of broad bucket of data science and programming. So some of the common questions we get are things like, I need to learn Python because I got a script from a collaborator and I don't even know where to start. So we work with a lot of people who are novices at programming, want to get started, learn kind of open source programming languages like Python or R. How should I document and package my code so that others can run it? So we really do try to focus on reproducibility, writing code in a way that others can actually use or that you can use in the future. And this last question is one we've been getting a lot more recently. What is generative AI and what do I need to know about it? So generative AI is kind of all over the place these days, and lots of folks just wanting to know, what are the basics? What should I know? What are some ideas for how I might want to use this in my research, or maybe ways that I probably shouldn't be using it in my research? And some recent classes and resources to highlight. We had our, every quarter, we have our R for Data Science series, which is several workshops that are all based on the R programming language, which take you from literally like, what is R and how do I get it, to now I'm analyzing my data, producing graphs and figures and reports in R. And this next year, the series is going to start over in January, and we will have a whole, I think, 4 workshops on generative AI as part of that series as well. And then our Digital Health Humanities Python series I mentioned was a chance to kind of bring humanities researchers who are interested in doing more computational work, but with text data as the primary kind of data source. And this was based on Python. So the next one, this is my area of expertise, data management and sharing. So some of the questions that I get is, my journal is asking me to share my research data. How do I do that? So I get these ones pretty frequently, often if people are publishing in journals like any of the PLOS journals that require you to share the data underlying your journal article. So what does that mean? Where should you put it? How does that work? We talk through all of those things. And then a broader question around, I can't find any of my work, or my data is really messy, or, I can never find the right project file. How should I be organizing my files or my projects? So we talk about kind of the project management side of things with, file organization, file naming, all of those kinds of little details that if you're not doing them right can make your life just a little bit more challenging. So some recent classes and resources to highlight on this topic are, this past year, we did a lot of outreach around this new NIH data management and sharing policy. So we have a whole guide on that, did a lot of presentations. And then as we're building out our support for data sharing and supporting different repositories out there, we've been highlighting different repositories. So we had one on the Vivly, which is a clinical trial data repository. So the recording of that is available as well. And the scholarly communication side, so here we're looking at things like, I got an article accepted by a journal. Do we have an open access agreement with them? So more and more, we're kind of transforming actually the money we spend on buying journals and purchasing subscriptions. We're actually pouring that into making those open access. So rather than us paying for a subscription to a journal, and then you can only read those articles if you also have a subscription to the journal, we're paying to actually make articles open access so that anybody can read them, no matter where they're located. Another question we often get is, how can I measure the impact of my work? So people talk about things like, oh, what's the impact factor? How do I tell a story? Or what kind of metrics are they most useful for kind of communicating, the long-term impact of my work? So we can talk through lots of those different factors. And one of the recent resources for this area is our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Scholarly Communication resource. This is a fabulous guide put together. It's actually a UC-wide resource that we contributed to that talks about things like inequities in publishing and peer review, and how people who are involved in peer review or run journals or contribute to journals can contribute to making it more equitable. All right, so I'll hand it over to Holly to talk about her team.
Okay. Great. Thanks, Ariel. And thanks for driving the slides. So I'll tell you when I need the next one. Okay, great. So my name is Holly Thompson. I'm the Director of Education and Clinical Research at UCSF Library. I joined the team in October, so I'm new and I am really excited to be getting out here and meeting different folks across UCSF. So I wanted to introduce the librarians on my team. We have Jill Barr Walker, who's a clinical research librarian at ZSFG. We have Leah Casey, who's an education and research librarian who works a lot with the School of Nursing. We have Nora Franco, who's another clinical research librarian for ZSFG. And I'll say a little bit more about her and Jill's roles in just a second. We have Peggy Tahir, who's an education and research librarian who works with essentially all the schools. She works with a lot of people. She works at School of Dentistry, School of Medicine, School of Pharmacy. We have Josephine Tan, who's an education research librarian who works a lot with School of Medicine, but also with the School of Pharmacy. And then myself, who's the director of this team and also a clinical research librarian for the Benioff Children's Hospital of Oakland. So my position, Nora and Jill's positions, they are formal relationships with these hospitals. So we're sort of identified as the librarians for those teams to go to. However, our entire team supports everybody at UCSF. So even though I've identified individual groups that librarians tend to work with, we're here to support and work with everybody. You can go to the next slide. So our mission, we actually have, I think, probably a couple different missions, but I think this one is the high level one that really sort of captures what we're working towards. So we want to empower learners, faculty, researchers towards becoming critical information creators and consumers. And you can go to the next slide. The way this manifests is we're sort of integrated into the main areas of focus across UCSF. So meaning in terms of education, as librarians, we might be providing sort of customized instruction sessions for a department, for a class, for a program. We might be doing one-on-one education sessions with individuals. We also might be instructors in programs as well, formal instructors. When it comes to research, we could be helping gather the information in support of protocol development, of a grant application. We might be providing guidance on developing a literature search for your own information and like kind of information gathering, or even building towards conducting a scoping review or a systematic review. Scholarly communication seems to kind of cut across a lot of the groups at our library, but we do have a librarian, Peggy, who is really sort of interested and has developed an expertise in copyright and fair use. And so she likes to provide guidance on those questions. And then also we're integrated into clinical care. So that might look like rounding onto care with care teams. It might look like attending, again, department meetings or morning report and lending that information expertise to those discussions to help sort of support care decisions. So you can go to the next slide. So diving deeper into our topic areas, I thought I'd highlight some of our common questions. So you can sort of see, if you jump to the bottom of the slide, the resolution for all of these questions is to meet individually with a librarian. But one of the main questions we get is, I need help conducting a literature search. And again, that could be something really basic, like just gathering background information, or it might be something more sophisticated. And so meeting with a librarian, we can provide guidance on developing a search strategy. We don't necessarily get a request with a list of keywords or topics and just like generate a search strategy for you. We really want it to be a collaborative experience where we're learning more about your goals and the potential application of this information and making sure that we're helping you achieve that. We also get a lot of questions about working on scoping or systematic reviews, and that might include the literature search aspect, or it might mean talking about the methodology, understanding the tools that are available to you through UCSF to support a project of this size. It could be anything. So meeting with a librarian is the way to sort of approach moving forward with one of these types of reviews. We get questions about citation management tools. So somebody might be having problems importing citations to Zotero or importing full text into EndNote. Yes, we can help. Usually it is through a consultation, or it might be pointing you to other customer service tools, or I should say sort of like support through those products themselves, but we're always going to help facilitate sort of a resolution to that problem. We've also received questions about how can I get alerts when there's new articles on my topic? So understanding the more sort of personalized features of different databases that you're using, or just learning how to use resources beyond just putting in keywords and finding, seeing a set of results, doing something that's a little more enduring. We can definitely help you learn to find and use new resources. And then finally, we get invitations to speak to departments or classes, and we're really happy to create customized instruction sessions, again, after you meet with us. So there's a link on this slide to how you go about requesting a consultation with a librarian. And I have one more slide on this. So we have a few other common questions that I wanted to highlight. We get a lot of questions about looking for assessment tools or questionnaires. These are really hard to track down, and we can't always find them. And we also get a lot of questions, do you have access to Covidence, which is a tool that supports systematic review, the systematic review process. So the answer to both these questions is maybe or potentially no, but I wanted to highlight it because as we get requests from our patrons across UCSF, and they're looking for things we don't have, we can build a case to justify either finding or reallocating funding to get it. So it's always worth asking. And even if the answer is no, we don't have it right now, we'll work with you to try and find a resource that's comparable, or try and find a workaround that will still help you achieve what you're trying to achieve. Similarly, sometimes we get questions about, do we have access to a specific database or journal or book? Maybe it's as easy as looking in our UC library search to see if we have access to it. But if we don't, we have an interlibrary loan service that we can refer you to, where we will get either a copy of that article or book chapter from another library and have it delivered to you electronically. I think that might be my last slide. Oh, okay. And I wanted to include just a handful of really simple search tips that not everybody knows about. So I'm making some assumptions about how you might look for information, but if you're looking in Google and you're looking for, more rich sort of gray literature, white papers, things like that, I wanted to point out that there are these searching shortcuts or tools where you can specify the domain that the information is coming from, your results are coming from. And the way you do that is you do site:/org, or you can do site:/gov, and that'll limit your results so you're not getting a lot of noise. In Google Scholar, we actually have a link that's specific for UCSF. So that's Google Scholar at UCSF. You can also update your settings and add UCSF. And the reason you want to do that is if you're doing a Google Scholar search, just from home or while you're on vacation, you would still be able to really easily link to the full text articles that you're finding that UCSF pays for. And then finally, just kind of reiterating that most databases allow you to create a personal account, and then you can save your searches and receive updates as new results are added. It's an easy way. It really makes keeping current with the literature a lot easier. And especially if you are doing something like a systematic review, it's a nice way to see how much new information is being published as you're sort of engaging in different phases of the project. So those are just a few searching tips I wanted to throw in. And I think Ariel's taking over.
Yeah. And one thing I just thought about, Holly, too, is we're talking about, searching and finding materials when you're not on the UCSF network. There is a link on the website to what's called a bookmarklet, which is an easy way. You just kind of add it to your browser, and then it's an easy way to reload a page through the UCSF My Access. So it'll ask you for your My Access login, and then if we have access to the article, it will take you directly there, so you're not getting that paywall. That's a really useful thing. I do it all the time.
Yeah.
All right. So we just wanted to wrap up here by highlighting some ways that you can get involved in any of these things if you are interested. So the first one is that you can take a free class. So all of our classes, really everything we do is free. So we wanted to highlight some of the classes that are coming up. There's lots and lots available on the library events calendar, and we'll send around these slides so you have all of these links. But two that we wanted to highlight next month, December 13th, is our Super Circular training. This one is run by Holly's team. I don't remember, was this Peggy who was doing it in particular? Yeah. And then January 5th is the beginning of our R for Everyone series. So if you are interested in learning how to program in R, which is a free open source programming language, so you don't need to buy anything, which is great. That starts again January 5th. But there's lots and lots of other stuff going on all the time. You can see this is 1 week's worth of events. So we have multiple week events every week at the library. You can also book a free consultation. So as Holly mentioned before, our librarians, folks on my team, we are more than happy to work with you. This is a free service, and really our goal is to kind of get you started, help connect you with resources, connect you with tools at UCSF or data that's out there. We really want to be kind of an easy option for any kind of question you have. So this isn't something where you have to have a fully thought out project proposal and get advice on that. It's really anything you think of, you can send us an email, or you can book a virtual or sometimes in-person consultation. So with my team, if you want to talk about any of the things I talked about, research data management, machine learning, natural language processing, generative AI, publishing, tracking impact, open access, open science, any of those things, we're more than happy to chat about. And you can chat with any of the education and research librarians about literature searching. If you want to have a custom session for your department or meeting, different resources that might be relevant to you, as well as citation management tools for writing with ease and managing all of your papers. And finally, on our website, we have a lot of resources. So I mentioned at the beginning, things like ebooks. We also have materials from past classes. So I put a highlight here for searching and managing the literature, which is a multi-part video series with short little bite-sized recordings. All of the programming classes we teach, all of the materials are available online. So if you don't have time to come in person or it just doesn't align with your schedule, you can always just look through those and work through them on your own time, or send those to trainees or other folks that you work with. We also have a lot of in-depth subject guides. So this is everything from kind of getting started with finding medical research to how do I organize and manage my data to where do I get started with learning how to program. And then we also have these kind of shorter, more bite-sized help articles. So here's one on the right. where do I start programming? This is very top of mind for me. But lots of just kind of shorter, quick how-to articles. And then lots more on the website. There's kind of a real treasure trove of resources on the library website. All right, so I think that is our main presentation for you all. So at this point, we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, I have a question. So you're talking about there's videos of some of the training sessions.
Yeah.
How do I find those on the website? I just kind of like typed in videos and mostly I got other types of videos. So
Yeah, so let's see here. So the one that I was mentioning is the Searching and Managing the Literature series. I'll put the link in. Most of our courses, this one's in the UCSF media space, and I'll put the link in the chat so you have that. But most of our courses are also located in the CLE, the Collaborative Learning Environment, campus learning environment. So for example, for all of the data science ones, I can just throw the link in the chat right now for that. They are all here. So if you want to look at, all the past programming courses we have, let's see, here's like our R for data science. Some of them have recordings, some of them it's just the materials. It kind of depends on the exact course. But you can find like all of the materials here. So let's see if any of these are actually recorded. Yeah, looks like this one is. So if you want to dive right into R for machine learning, there you go. Other questions, comments?
I have a question. Do you have any classes or resources about qualitative analysis software, specifically potentially Deduce?
Yeah, so we don't have any on qualitative software specifically, and in general we don't focus as much on paid software. We try to focus a little bit more on open programming languages or resources, just because we want them to be accessible to everyone. The qualitative resource that we have is here, guys. We do have a qualitative research guide, which if you haven't looked at it, is pretty in-depth. I just put a link in the chat. So this does have a section on data analysis and software, and highlights some different resources and ebooks about both the kind of like how do you do qualitative coding, as well as different software tools. And then we do list some tools at the bottom. Since you mentioned Deduce, I will say I was just on an email thread about how technically Deduce is not approved for UCSF sensitive P3 or P4, so identified or de-identified data, because of some thing about their liability insurance requirements. So that's something I just recently found out, so I've marked that on this guide here. But there are other tools that are out there and available that are free, or that are kind of run locally on your machine. And then we do through the library, but we don't teach workshops on it, provide access to in vivo, or we help people license it.
What exactly is a definition for P3 and P4 data?
Yeah, so let's look it up. So UCSF data classification. So we have 4 data classification levels at UCSF, and they, let's find the full, here we go. So P4 is basically anything that is identified. So PHI, research health information, personal identifiable information, PII, basically anything with identifiable information. P3 is sort of the next level down, generally where you've gotten rid of the identifying, but it might still be sensitive. So it's kind of what we would consider like sensitive data. And so it can include like de-identified health information, donor information, and intellectual property, generally stuff like that. So this is where, the campus, when we're looking at different data resources or different data storage options, sometimes they'll say like, this is approved for P4 or P3 data. They're really talking about, the most secure stuff that needs to go into some of those platforms.
Do you know what data analysis software is approved for P3? I'm literally in an IRB process right now and have used Deduce for UCSF projects. And I was new information for me.
Yeah, so I don't know about anything that's widely approved, and partly this goes to the way that software is like approved for use through the IT security risk assessment process. They don't really have like a resource that's just here's all the things that are approved. So if you are going to be putting P4 or P3 data, technically you're supposed to go through the risk assessment process. Let me just put in a link to that. Whoops, at UCSF. Yeah, I think the deduce thing was news to me as well. I've also used that for a past project. It was several years ago. And I was able to get it approved, but I think things have changed. So if you have questions about like using different tools or getting tools through the risk assessment process, I highly recommend meeting with the research security team at UCSF. Let me put in
Yeah. I actually did, and they didn't mention it, but I can ask them. Yeah.
This is Jamie Lamb and her team.
No, it was someone else. This is like pre-IRB review, so maybe it's like not the full review. Maybe it was just like a preliminary. Maybe it's different. This is my first IRB, so it's a little unfamiliar.
Yeah. So this is a different group. So research security, they're a team. I think they used to be part of School of Medicine, but they serve everyone, and they're pretty new that they offer consultations. But they're really great consultations. I've co-consulted with them a couple times recently. It's just secureresearch at ucsf.edu. And they are really helpful about kind of helping you navigate the risk assessment process and like understanding, and they have access to the kind of behind the scenes. So I like to think of them as the group that's really helpful for like navigating IT processes and getting approvals for security, for things that need security approvals. So I've met with them and I highly recommend them if you have those kinds of questions. And I see Sophie put a note in about using Atlas.
And that's available in the RAE.
Yeah, so Atlas is available both in Ray, which is the secure research environment that we have on campus. It's also available actually in person at Parnassus Library on the Parnassus Library computers. So if you want to go in person to Parnassus, you are welcome to use those computers. What other questions y'all have? These are really good ones.
I'm just going to ask again, because I know you said this already, but it sounds like you can meet individually with the librarian. Years ago, I had a great class, I think it was with Peggy, to hear on doing literature searches, which I know is like probably the top thing you get a question about. But what was super helpful, and now I've lost the notes, is good ways to search for gray literature, which is something that I use a lot more than published journal articles. And she just had great suggestions. So I guess you can just make an appointment to talk to somebody about things like that.
Absolutely. And I'll double check right now. We might have a guide that actually consolidates sort of all that information as well. But absolutely. And Peggy is still probably one of our experts on that as well. She was the one who insisted I included those searching tips on the slide. And, you know, we have it online. Ariel's looking at the guides right now. But if there's another sort of medium that would work better, if you just wanted like a handout, like that would be something we could also develop for you.
Right, because I also help with somebody who teaches a class in health policy. And sometimes one of the things that comes up is the questions that students have to answer are about searching for gray literature. And some of them are really, it's like kind of a new concept for them. So that would be really helpful to get resources, both for myself and for other people.
Yeah. So send, sorry if my internet just paused, but yeah, so either send me or you can contact Peggy and we would be happy to put that together for you.
Yeah, and I just found, I was looking to see if we had a guide. It didn't come up real quick, but on the qualitative research guide I mentioned, there is a tab on gray literature with some gray literature like search tips. So I think some of the ones that Holly mentioned around using that site specific tips, and then some other places where you might find gray literature.
Yeah, and also having an opportunity to meet with you and to learn more specifically about the topics you're looking at can generate even more helpful and specific sort of recommendations for finding that great literature.
Thank you.
Questions, things we can highlight for people. Since we're on the qualitative research guide, I will also mention we've got some new sections on writing resources. So how to write up the results of qualitative research and some reporting guidelines around, thinking about what to include in your paper. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I do a lot of sharing data management stuff. So we have a lot of papers as well as information around sharing qualitative data and what that actually means, whether you're talking about, contextual analysis of policy documents or interview-based research or focus groups or something like that. There's a lot of really good guides to kind of thinking about how to share that kind of materials. And then we also we are institutional members of a repository that's called the Qualitative Data Repository. So if you are needing to share this kind of materials, this is a really excellent resource. They allow you to make parts of your data available under restricted access licenses. So you could say, hey, the protocol is maybe open, but in order to access maybe the transcripts or some other more sensitive aspect of the data, you need to actually have a research plan and you need to apply to access. So if that's at all interesting to you, we did a whole session with that repository, and we have a recording of that, as well as other kind of detailed information on the library website as well. So you can look at, learn more about that. All right. Well, if you think of anything, just send, I'll send her on the slides so you have them. But feel free to send me an email, send Holly an email. We've got a lot of things that we've highlighted, and we don't expect you to remember exactly who said what. So if you want to follow up on any of it, you can just email either of us and we can point you in the right direction, so that you know who to chat with.
Thank you so much. There's a lot to review. I'm sure some of us at least will be reaching out to you with questions later on. Thank you.
Sounds great. Yes, we look forward to hearing from you.
All right, thanks. Have a good day.
Thanks all.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.